Then, back at home, the U.S.-Israeli tension comes into a new, sharp, kind of odd focus between conservative bulldog Steve King, questioning the dedication of Democratic Jews to the Israeli cause, and one of the persons that he winds up targeting is Democratic representative from New York, Steve Israel. Sometimes you can't make it up, but I have to ask you the hard question, Congressman. Are you not Jewish enough? Must you now change your name? Because as a Democrat, you can't be Jewish and a Democrat because you'd have to be a Republican because the Democrats don't support Israel. Is that true, sir?
Well, sir, you know, I know Steve King. I didn't know he was a Talmudic scholar, able to define what is a Jew and what makes a good Jew. Look, I don't advise Steve King on issues that he's close to, and I certainly do not expect Steve King to advise me on what makes a good Jew.
Insulting?
Insulting and dangerous. Dangerous because the relationship between the United States and Israel should not be used as a partisan football. And when you get this invective that begins to creep on dual loyalties, and when somebody like Steve King begins to pass judgment on what's a good Jew and what's not a good Jew, that becomes very dangerous territory, and he needs to just back down.
So, the audience is hearing this discussion. They're saying, well, how bad could it be? Nobody's going to be attacking Jews for not supporting Israel. Here's what Congressman Steve King said on a Boston radio show.
Here's what I don't understand. I don't understand how Jews in America can be Democrats first and Jewish second, right, and support Israel along the line of just following their president.
So what's the simple salvo is what? That if you like what the Democrats are doing with Israel, then that's okay. But if you're Jewish, you can't like it, so you should be Republican. What does that mean to you in terms of the politics of the situation?
Well, first of all, it means that Steve King is Meshuggah, is what I call it, which is a little crazy. He would have to look that up. You know, this great Jewish scholar would have to look it up. Secondly, and dangerously, this does a disservice to the relationship between the United States and Israel. Look, there are Jews who support Israel. There are some Jews who are critical of Israel. That's the beauty of our democracy. We're no better, no worse than other people. The bottom line here, Chris, is that what's happening with the United States and Israel right now, it's like most marriages. Sometimes you fight, sometimes you yell, sometimes you don't talk, but the fundamentals are sound, and that's what we need to be focusing on, the fundamentals.
Now, you can make the argument that the support of Israel by the U.S. is completely secular because it's about security, isn't it? And there's, I don't think anybody really disputes here in U.S. or certainly in Congress that there is a unique existential threat to Israel. The question becomes, is what's going on between Netanyahu and President Obama dangerous to that relationship?
The optics, this obsession with who called who, with the public disagreements, the spat that they're having, it's not good. There's no question about it. And everybody needs to take a time out, deep breath. But here's what counts. I was in Israel literally within weeks after the missiles flew from Gaza to Israel. When Hamas waged war in Israel. By the way, I didn't see Steve King there. I went. And when Israel needed help from the United States in the form of $225 million in funding for its Iron Dome program to save lives, it was President Obama who put in the request for the funding, and it was the United States Congress that passed that bill. 8 people voted against it. 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats. So the fundamentals, bipartisan support for Israel, they're sound, they're strong, and they should be, not because I'm Jewish and not because this is a Jewish issue, but because this is an American issue. A strong Israel is a more secure America, and we need to be focusing on that. Militarily, in terms of intel, the relationship has never been better. Not my quote, Bibi Netanyahu's quote.
So when the Prime Minister came here, you were with him, right? You say you walked him in and you walked him out.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you something. If President Obama went to Israel and addressed the Knesset and said, you know, I have to tell you, this two-state situation, these settlements, they're a problem, and what the Prime Minister wants to do, it's not going to go well here, and gave that speech, what do you think the reaction would have been?
Steve King would probably introduce articles of impeachment immediately. There would be a hue and cry, and that's why this invective, using Israel as a political football to be spiked in the end zone, is so dangerous. We need to get away. Look, one speech, one Prime Minister, one Congress with a historically low public approval rate is not what's important. What's important are the fundamentals, and we need to focus on those fundamentals.
Now, look, I'll give you that as a Democrat, being named Steve Israel, you're somewhat of the ace in the hole right now.
I have some credibility on this issue.
I mean, this name has never worked for you more than it is right now. However, is it fair criticism of your party that the Republicans have kind of taken Israel as an issue? from you. Some say it's just about security. Some say it's about the Christianization of the Republican Party, that it's a religious fight and they want to own it. But it doesn't seem that the Republicans own Israel as a supportive issue more than the Democrats.
Israel is not an issue to be taken from one party by another party. Bibi Netanyahu said the most important strategic asset Israel has is bipartisanship in the United States Congress. And people who really care about Israel and the United States ought to be focusing on building that bipartisan relationship, not tearing it apart.
It does seem, though, that when you get GOP, let's say presidential contenders or possibles, they talk about this all the time, Israel, how strong it is and what it means and how what the president has done is wrong. You know, do you believe that this is going to wind up swaying advantage, even if you get another 50 guys named Israel in the Democratic Party?
Look, I don't believe that Israel should be used as an electoral tool. I don't believe it should be used for partisan gain by either party. We support Israel because it is fundamentally important to the United States. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You need to galvanize, I believe, around that issue. We can have differences of opinion on various issues, just as we did when Ronald Reagan sold $8.5 billion in AWACS equipment to the Saudis.
Yeah.
I mean, show me a president since Harry Truman. I'll show you some tensions in U.S.-Israeli relations. What counts is the fundamentals, and we need to be focusing on those fundamentals.
Good allies can also be good critics at times, and you have to deal with both. Congressman Israel, thank you for being here, and thank you for the explanation of Meshuggah. Steve King used that on the show once. No, he didn't. This is One Big